Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm an American that's been living in Sweden for almost 5 years. That sounds crazy to say. Time has just been flying by, almost 5 years. That's basically my entire adult life. Since the age of 22, now I'm 27. How crazy is that? I feel almost more Swedish than American now. But this winter, I decided to spend 6 weeks in Barcelona, Spain. And in this video, I'm gonna make some comparisons and talk about which country do I actually enjoy living in more. Even though it's a very limited experience here, I think I can still come up with a pretty decent pros and cons list. So whether you're thinking about moving to Sweden or Spain, or you're just interested in my experiences living in these other countries, this video might be interesting for you. So let's jump right into it. The first thing I want to discuss is the climate, because in Sweden this varies a ton from those long, nice, sunny summer days where the sun comes up at 2 or 3 in the morning and goes down at midnight. I just absolutely love those Swedish summer nights. But when it comes to the flip side, it's like this winter that just draws out for such a long period of time when it's already getting cold in like October and November, and you're starting to bundle up and everybody's just staying inside, starting to get darker earlier and earlier, and the sun will set at like 2 in the afternoon and come up at like 9 or 10 in the morning in those really darkest, coldest days. And I feel like no matter what I wear, I just don't look good. There's this saying in Sweden that there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothes. Now, this is maybe a good mindset because it makes you take control of the situation a little bit, but for me, I feel like I just never look good wearing like a ski jacket or whatever. I don't know, it's impressive that Swedish people are able to look good in the wintertime. I don't know how they pull it off. Been there almost 5 years, as I've said, and still trying to figure that part out. But in Barcelona, it's February right now. The coldest it will get will be like 5 or 6 degrees at nighttime or those really early mornings. And that's pretty cold as well, but not as cold as the Swedish side of things where it's below freezing most of the time in those winter months. And for me, being somebody that loves to be outside, going for walks, hikes, walking down by the beach, playing golf, all of these sorts of things, I have to give the point for the weather to Spain, because it's just a longer period of the year that you can be outside comfortably, wearing a t-shirt, playing sports outside, all of these things. Now, that's not to say you can't do that in Sweden, but just for me and my lifestyle, I love being outside year-round in a more comfortable climate. And that's the biggest reason why I decided to take these 6 weeks, just to get a break from that dark, cold Swedish winter. So point 1 goes to Spain for the climate. Number 2 I want to talk about is the sense of security in both countries. Now, living in central Stockholm, it's very, very rare that I ever feel concerned about my safety or security of my belongings or all of these sorts of things. In Barcelona, there are some areas in the city center that I would try to avoid, which you don't really have in the city center in Stockholm. You might like go for a 20-minute subway ride in one specific direction to come to an area that some people might deem to be a little sketchier. And even in those areas, people generally won't mess with you. They'll sort of keep to themselves, whereas people here are much more outgoing and forthright and engaging you in conversation and these sorts of things, even in those sketchier areas. So for me, I feel just a lot more at ease from a security perspective living in Stockholm. And that's not to say that I don't feel safe in Barcelona, because the city seems very, very safe. But I've heard a lot of stories about people that have lost their phones or wallets, or a lot of petty crimes that happen here. And actually for me, I almost lost my phone in Barcelona as well. I was actually walking home one night and there were 2 guys standing outside the doorway of where I was going in. And I didn't have my AirPods with me. They came up to me, they started a conversation. They gave me a card from a restaurant that I had been to, and I know some people that work there. So I thought it was sort of like, oh wow, they were just at this restaurant and I know the people that are working there. So they were sort of being super friendly, and I was sort of going along with it, but a little bit uneasy. And then they put their arm around me and they're singing songs and doing some like weird wrestling move thing where they're wrapping their leg around mine. And I'm just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So I back up, check my pockets, my phone was gone. And I'm going, all right, guys, very funny, like, give me my phone back. Luckily, they did give me my phone back, but they could have pretended to not have it. They could have refused to give my phone back. I don't know what would have happened in that situation. But had I not checked my pockets, I think there's a good chance that they would have just walked off with my phone. And I've heard this happen to a lot of people, that there are these scams of people stealing phones. So that's something that I just haven't really been worried about in Sweden, for example. Like if you ride the trains in Sweden, Swedish people will just like leave their laptops open on the train, logged in and everything, go to the bathroom. They're not really worried about securing their belongings in the same sort of way that I would be diligent about being aware of my surroundings and stuff in Spain. For me, that comes a bit more naturally growing up in America, but I think Swedish people, because there is such a high sense of security, they are just more trusting of other people, maybe a bit more naive when they come into these situations abroad. So that's just something to be aware of. But overall, I would say from that safety, security perspective, I'm gonna give the slight edge to Sweden on this one, and that's gonna tie things up at 1-1. The third thing I wanna talk about is something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is food. Now, when it comes to the food in Spain, it is absolutely amazing. The tapas, like the patatas bravas, the jamon, the bread with the tomato, the calamari. I live for Spanish tapas. And the food in Sweden, I have to say, is very, very good as well. As somebody that isn't the biggest fish fan when it comes to like the cold, like herring and salmon and these sorts of things, I would probably give a slight edge to, like, when it comes to traditional cuisines, that I have a slight preference towards the Spanish. But when it comes to like Swedish food that you can buy in grocery stores and stuff, the quality is extremely high. So you can cook very, very good meals in Sweden. And when you go out to restaurants, same thing. The quality is very, very good. So Sweden is definitely holding their own in the food category. Now, what is going to tip the scale for me is when it comes to fresh produce, which they just have a slight edge here in Spain, because you think about where do all these citrusy fruits and things come from? They come from the more southern areas of Europe. So like every morning, for example, I'll get fresh squeezed orange juice, which is so fresh and so tasty that the flavors are really tough to compete with if you're living in a northern European country where they need to transport a lot of these goods. A lot of times when I'm eating fruit like tomatoes and these sorts of things in Spain, there's just this level of flavor that they have here that is just, it's just like, this is how it should taste. So although the food quality in Sweden is extremely high, I just think for some small reasons I have to give the slight edge to Spain on this one. So Spain is actually in the lead now, 2-1. Now let's take a minute to discuss economic opportunities, because when it comes to Sweden and Spain, there seems to be quite the difference when it comes to salaries for positions. Now, of course, salaries and economic opportunities, those are going to vary a lot from industry to industry, from job to job, employer to employer. There's a lot of things to take into account when it comes to this. But in general, I would say because Swedish salaries are higher, there's more economic opportunities that are stronger in Sweden. That is going to be an edge to Sweden. Now, Barcelona is cheaper than Stockholm comparatively, but if you're making a Spanish salary, I could see why it would be hard for people to get by here in Barcelona on a Spanish salary. For example, I have a friend from Sweden that moved to Barcelona, and she was making 50% less her salary in Spain. So she was having some issues trying to make ends meet, coming from a higher Swedish salary to a lower Spanish one. And eventually she decided to apply for a Swedish job where she could work remotely, and now she's making a Swedish salary living in Spain. So sort of getting the best of both worlds. But when it comes to like in general, I would say that Sweden is going to get the edge on this one and tie things up 2-2. Now there's one more thing I want to discuss in this video, which is going to be the tiebreaker, and this is the mindset and the boundaries of the people. Now, if you're somebody that likes the peaceful, reserved nature and you don't want people to come up to you and bother you, and you just want to be in a more relaxing environment where everybody is more kept to themselves, Sweden is a great place for you. If you want lots of stimulation, you want people coming up to you, talking to you, you want to make friends very, very easily, you want to go out, you want to be wild, you want to be in an environment that's more loud and outgoing, then Spain is going to be the place for you. Now this one, I don't think I can give a point to either one of those, because there's sometimes when I'm, taking public transportation or going for walks where I've got my AirPods in, I just don't want to be bothered. And in that case, Sweden, nobody's gonna come up to you and bother you. It doesn't matter if I'm wearing AirPods or not. Here in Spain, people are gonna come up to me, try to talk to me, interact with me. And after my previous experience of almost losing my phone, sometimes I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna pretend to ignore these people. I'm going full on Swede mode, blocking out the rest of the world, put my head down, and that's cool. But on the flip side, there are advantages to the Spanish people being a bit more outgoing when it comes to making friends, for example. It seems like it's very, very easy in Barcelona to make friends. Also, when it comes to like the flow of conversations, there's a huge difference with that as well. In a Swedish conversation, it seems like a lot of times there's more pauses throughout. Like one person will talk, there will be a little bit of a pause, and the next person will talk. And in Spain, it's like somebody will be talking, and then there'll be a short pause, and then before you can even get a word in, they're on to the next topic. So I guess this is really up to your individual preference and what you prefer. For me, I like a little bit of both, and it's cool that I'm able to experience both. So I'm actually gonna split this point down the middle, give a half point to each. So the final tally is that Sweden's gonna have 2.5 points and Spain has 2.5 points. I just can't pick a winner because both of these countries are so great and they have so many interesting and cool things to offer, cool cultural experiences, and I'm really glad that I've had the chance to experience both. Now that is just my personal opinion. I'd love to see what you guys have to say down below in the comments section. Do you agree with me on these points? Do you see things differently? Are there some aspects that I did not compare in this video that you'd like to discuss? Let me know. I would love to see it. If you like this video, be sure to drop a like. That really helps me out, and subscribe for future content about Spain, Sweden, and my travels throughout Europe. Thanks so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in another video.